Good evening, and welcome to Bringing a Small Light Home. My name is Carl Selkin. I am co-chair of the Social Justice Committee of Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. We have a mission to respond to societal conditions and contemporary issues based on traditional Jewish values and the prophetic admonition, Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue. A small light offers a window into the motivations and struggles of those who would not stand idly by while the Holocaust shredded lives and created a nightmare from which we are still suffering. Anti-Semitism does not rest, and we need people who will stand up to and vanquish hate and bigotry of every sort. This webinar is being recorded. We anticipate posting the recording to our SJC PJTC YouTube channel. Please use the question and answer function to raise questions that we hope to be able to address at the end of this program, which will run about an hour. Our moderator this evening is SJC member Sean Paper. He will introduce our featured guests this evening, director-producer Susanna Fogel and actress Ashley Brooke, who will discuss their work to bring to life this National Geographic miniseries about Miep Gies and her husband Jan as they struggle to save the family of Anne Frank and other Jews. Let me just add, before turning host duties over to Sean, that the Social Justice Committee stands in solidarity with all the workers who are walking the picket lines for a fair contract for writers. Please find ways to stand with us in this cause. And now, let me hand the screen to my friend, Sean Paper. Sean is a film editor and a member of ACE, best known for his work on Veep, where he was nominated for both Emmy and ACET Eddie Awards. At home in both drama and comedy, Sean became the go-to one-half-hour comedy guy when people mistakenly remembered the hour-long dramedy of Ugly Betty as a half-hour comedy. He has edited many commercials, features, and TV series, including Flight of the Conchords, Parks and Recreation, The Vampire Diaries, Girls, What Do We Do in the Shadows, and Sweet Tooth. His latest work, Platonic, is a rom-com without the rom. It stars Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne. Platonic premiered last week, can be seen on Apple TV. Sean?
Thank you, Carl. It's a pleasure to be here and talking with these esteemed filmmakers and actors for this incredible story. Susanna Fogel began creating films as a teenager, with notable screenings of her earliest work at festivals in Toronto and Europe. Her career as a novelist, writer, director, and producer for television and film includes a range of genres, notably exploring female relationships with her keen sense of humor. Her films include a spoof of live-action spy movies, The Spy Who Dumped Me, her drama series, Chasing Life, on ABC Family, and her DGA award-winning direction of an episode of The Flight Attendant, share a focus on the relationships among women that also earned recognition and honors for life partners. Writing credits include Booksmart and The Addams Family. Most recently, her film Cat Person, exploring the complexities of a young woman's encounter with a man, played at Sundance last year and will be coming out within a year. Featured at Sundance Collab and other arenas as a mentor and advocate for talented women seeking careers in film. Susanna's upcoming film on whistleblower reality winner, Like a Small Light, explores the importance of resisting the outrages that confronts us. And we also have Ashley Brooke with us. Ashley has been involved in the entertainment industry since she was very young. Brooke received accolades as Piper Keller in the Amazon Prime 2019 Sundance Film Festival Troop Zero, working alongside Viola Davis and Allison Janney. Recently, she wrapped a recurring role in the upcoming HBO miniseries The White House Plumbers, playing Alexandra Liddy, daughter of G. Gordon Liddy, played by Justin Theroux. She's appeared in guest roles on several television shows, including NBC's New Amsterdam and Disney's Bizaardvark. Other TV credits include NBC's Blacklist, Comedy Central's The Other Two, and CBS's Bull. In addition to acting, Brooke is also an award-winning soprano. She trained in classical voice at the Manhattan School of Music's pre-college program. Her theater credits include Dr. Zhivago on Broadway at the age of 9, and The Sound of Music national touring of that production as Lisa Von Trapp. Brooke is grateful to bring Margot Frank's story to life in A Small Light, as the story of Anne Frank and her family has always been important to her. So we're going to jump into the middle of our conversation. We had a little technical difficulty, and so we missed the beginning where I asked Susanna Fogel what made the telling of this story different.
We've seen certain moments again and again and again in this telling of these Holocaust stories, but we don't see the sort of banal everyday life that people were leading to, because history is only telling us the sort of greatest hits of what happened that sort of is worthy of a movie. But really it involved people getting up and not knowing where the story was going. Like they didn't know what the end of the war was going to be. For a while, they'd have conversations that resembled the conversations we have about politics, which are like, I don't know, is it getting bad? When do we move to Canada? Is it bad now? What about now? Like it's sort of casual at first, and you're making jokes and you're having dinner parties and you're still having drinks and going out with people. And then things start to feel bad, but everyone's still kind of trying to like live as normal. So the idea was just to explore that, and really have people feel like they relate to that experience, and thus that they relate to something that otherwise would feel like a historical document, because we've seen it told that way for so many years.
It makes me think that, telling this story in 8 episodes. I remember hearing Tony saying that they had only thought it would be a 7-episode story, and then as they fleshed it out, they realized there was more to this story that they had to tell. And I appreciate the nuance that you're able to tell in this type of format. Ashley, what was it like to work with these amazing cast?
It was awful. No, no, it was amazing. They are just all incredible. And I mean, Belle just has such an incredible work ethic to herself. She's, first of all, just an incredible person on the outside. Like, she's fun, she's vivacious, and I think you can see that all on screen. But she's just so effortlessly is able to do it all so seamlessly. And I mean, she is working almost every single scene of the day and just so seamlessly is able to hold that on herself. So, I mean, I learned a lot from her. Definitely was very inspired by just like watching her.
The quote that inspires your show, Meep says, "I don't like being called a hero because no one should ever think you have to be special to help others. Even an ordinary secretary or housewife or a teenager can turn on a small light in a dark room."
I think that the idea that she didn't consider herself a hero, that she really didn't want to sort of put herself up on a pedestal. It's the irony of it, because obviously the show is about her because she did something that not everyone did. And we've chosen to shine a light on her character and her as a person. And I think she grappled in her life with not wanting to feel like it was about her and that she was the center of attention and that she was this like figure of like Holocaust heroism, because she's like, I just did the thing that any like sentient human would do. But at the same time, because we see that that's not always the case with people, you do have to kind of elevate people like her. But yeah, I mean, she was a modest person, but she was also like a person with a lot of personality. Meep was, as is Belle, which is why it was like a great match. But yeah, I mean, I think we talked a lot about how she just made one decision in one moment. She's like, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say yes to this one thing. She didn't know it was going to be years. Nobody did. She didn't know it was going to be, begging, borrowing, and stealing resources and alienating people in her life to try to keep this family alive. But yeah, I mean, I think it started with it's the seed of it was just this one yes that she said. She did something instead of not doing something. And that sort of was the small light that sparked her whole journey, right, as a character. And I think yeah, we talked about how basically like in an ideal world, people watch the show and think about in their own life, what are the little moments where we can heed a call to action? And what are the little decisions we can make, that just sort of help somebody that needs our help in a tiny way, and sometimes it can escalate into a bigger like life mission. But for her, it was just a small thing she did. And it spoke to like the truth of who she was. And that was really put to the test in a big way, but she didn't know what she was getting into, which is kind of part of the point. You have to just like leap and then think about it.
Carl, can you cue up the bridge scene? I think this is a really good introduction to the story and to Ashley and Belle's, the characters of Margot and Meep's relationship.
Don't be afraid, Margot. Do what Meep says.
Yes. I want to go too.
No, she'll go later with us.
Why can't I go now?
Because we decided, Anne, you would go with us later.
Well, goodbye then.
No, we're not saying goodbye because we'll see you soon. Can you go and get your sister's coat, please?
Listen to me, darling. It's just an ordinary bike ride, okay?
Yeah.
Huh?
Hurry. We need to get there before they open the checkpoint. Let's go. Hurry, faster.
What should I drop it? On the ground?
Drop it, yes, let's go.
Oh my God, we're too late. The checkpoint is open.
Attention, please have your identification
I
ready.
don't have my ID.
I know.
Because you told me not to bring it. And you told me to take off my coat. And
Margot.
if they see I'm not wearing my star, they're going to arrest
Margaret,
me.
stop it and listen to me, okay?
Don't cry.
Don't cry.
Okay?
You apologise and say you forgot your ID.
What if they stop me?
They won't, if you smile. He's looking at us. Laugh. Like I'm telling you a joke. Yeah. Okay? Almost there. Almost there.
I can't do this.
Margot, forgot my ID 2 days ago. They let me
I'm
right
going
through.
back.
No, he's already seen us. All right, listen to me.
I really don't think I can do this.
Margot, you can do this. You are so much stronger than you think you are.
That first scene resonated with me so much, and I loved how you bookended this episode with the bridge scene. I think there's something special about the exterior. Can you tell us about the when the girls first get on the bicycle?
Yeah, Ashley, do you want to talk about it? Talk about where we filmed that?
Yeah, what was the actual location that we filmed
Oh,
that?
you're talking about the house, the actual house. So the apartment that they're.
Oh no, I meant like okay, yes. We filmed outside for the very beginning portion of that clip.
Hurry. We need to get there before they open the checkpoint.
We filmed outside the actual Frank family apartment, which was kind of emotional for all of us. I mean, I remember like Tony and Joan took like a moment to look around at the space, and we just kind of remembered how in the grass that was right in front of us. This is where Anne and Margot used to really play and like ride their bikes. And, they were just normal kids having fun until everything, this clip plays. But it was special being able to film there.
What it was like to act in a scene like this, what it was like to act with people in jackboots and NSB and Nazi uniforms.
A lot of the performance is like a testimony to the writing, what was on the page, and Tony and Joan did an incredible job at doing so much research about this time period. But I think a lot of that performance is inspired by a few different things. It was everything that I was researching from the time period, but also testimonies. And specifically, when I got this role, I was really, really lucky to see a testimony of my grandma, who is a Holocaust survivor. And her testimony was harrowing. And basically, I wasn't able to hear it from her herself because I was too young at the time. But I was really lucky to watch this video of her. But what really stuck for me from that video was the enormous amount of fear that she described. And that I remember, really inspiring a lot of this scene in particular, especially because in a lot of the research that I was doing on Margot, there's not so much. She's very peripheral in a lot of the readings. So I remember a lot of that was inspired by that video of her talking about, the massive amount of fear. But also, I mean, my grandma was just so inspiring, and she talked about those moments of hope all the time. And that just brought me back to what Meep was for the Frank family and how she was their like hope, their little light. For my grandma, that allowed her to survive, was those people. And I mean, for the Frank family, it allowed them to survive for years.
And this testimony, that's at the USC? Is that at the
It's at the USC Shoah Foundation, which Steven Spielberg, funded a lot of Holocaust testimonies.
She was also in the same camps that Anne and Margot were in?
Yes. So first, she was split between the ages of Anne and Margot. So she was 14 when she went to the concentration camps, but she also was in Bergen-Belsen. So she
might have been there around the same time.
Talked to them, might have seen them. Yeah.
Is it true that Margot also had a diary?
Yes, that was also a lot of my prep. I just kept going back to the fact that Margot had a diary, but it was never found. And so everything I was reading from, Meep's account, Anne Frank Remembered, Otto's testimonies, Anne's diary, they're all perspectives. And it kept looming over me that Margot had a diary and it was never found. So actually part of my process was taking pages from Anne's diary and then putting it into Margot's perspective, which really helped to step into her shoes, and also just kind of made me relate to her in a big way, especially like Anne and Margot's relationship and like their little jealousy or bickering moments. I could totally relate to that with my brother. Yeah. But yeah, it just helped to kind of relate it back.
I know that Tony and Joan had gone to the Anne Frank Foundation and gone to the house and seen the annex with their kids years before, but I think you guys as a cast had an opportunity to do this as well for your research, right?
Yes, it was when we were able to shoot in Amsterdam. So when we were outside of the Frank family apartment, that was one of our exteriors. But we were able to have a private tour of the Anne Frank Museum, which we actually just went back to when we had a premiere there. But yeah, that informed a lot too. And we got to go in areas that I guess tourists wouldn't normally be able to, so we could like see everything. And I mean, what we had in Prague was a literal replica of what we were seeing. And Mark, who is the set designer, is absolutely incredible. And
So you recreated the annex and the Opekta offices in Prague on soundstage, and down to the T. I mean, when I look at that bookshelf, I get the chills. I feel the entrapment. I feel what that barrier was.
Actually, it was intense because when I was scouting with Mark and the rest of the department heads, he was taking meticulous notes and pictures, and like he has that kind of brain. He's a longtime art director before he became a production designer. Is a longtime art director for Ridley Scott. So he had built sets for The Martian, and he'd done some James Bond movies, and he was like so just committing it to memory. And then we built it on stage in Prague. But then after we'd been shooting for the whole summer in Prague, when we went back for the premiere, actually the Amsterdam premiere, we went back and we got this tour, and it was like we were back we had so much time on the stages that we felt like we had been living there. That when we went back and then saw it, we were like appreciating how close a replica he made. It was pretty incredible. It was a really
Amazing.
very bizarre, like surreal going back there.
I'd love to show some of the family dynamics that we have with Margot having her existential crisis.
This is one of my favorite moments, actually. This is one of my favorite moments when we were filming too.
Dr. Pfeffer thinks we're in Switzerland.
You see, our plan worked.
Pfeffer? You saw Pfeffer?
We're never going to the dentist again. Oh, the doctor, or outside, or school.
Oh, darling.
We don't
What are you doing?
exist.
Margot.
Don't say that. Why is Margot on the floor?
She's having an existential crisis. No, I'm not. That's what Pim told me. Papa, you were talking about me behind my back.
No, let's not fight about it, please. There's not much time and we have to open the office.
Well, I have to pee, and if I have to pee, that means I exist.
Oh, and don't be so disgusting.
Oh, I'm just being human.
Well, go be human somewhere else. Meep and I have business to discuss.
Here's a shopping list. I need a chicken. Don't take the first chicken they offer you. There's always a better chicken. Margot, come on, what are you doing? It's almost 8:30.
What's the point?
There is none. Go. Margot.
The domesticity of being trapped.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that. It's like the little details that we learned were like, Anne loved to play tennis. She brought her tennis racket to the annex, because she's like, you never know. I'm going to bring my racket. They brought Monopoly. They sat around playing board games. It's like there's so much mundane boredom. There's so much just like being a teenager, which is already such boring hell, trapped with your parents, even if you can go outside and get some space, like we really just thought about that all the time. We're like, rather than have everybody just always sitting around the table ready to film a scene, let's have like Anne braiding Margot's hair. If I was Anne and I had nothing to do, I would braid that long hair that Ashley has, whatever. So we talked about how can we just animate the scenes with these little details that just remind you of just, interacting with people in your life, not in a historical drama, not in an Anne Frank story, but just a human story. So yeah, the lying on the floor thing was really, that was just a thing we came up with. Cause we're like, yeah, that's something that she would do if she was just like having her moment of teen angst,
And honestly, that beautiful direction was, it changed the whole like tone of the scene, because now like all these characters are interacting with someone being on the floor and having an existential crisis, and like Edith has to step over her, which is just a funny beat. And honestly, what I love about Susanna so much, and she's paying me to say this right now, is that it just works so well with the emotional moments, but also having those comedic moments come across on screen so visually beautifully.
Yes, and Susanna is not paying me to agree with you.
I'll Venmo you guys after this. No problem.
I remember, Susanna, that you and I had spoken. I had just gone to Israel my parents had taken me to Israel and my son for his bar mitzvah present. and we had scheduled an interview because I was potentially going to work on the show with you, and I was in the middle of my hotel in Jerusalem, having a conversation with you on a very spotty cell reception, talking about I think we talked about the bicycle scene, which in the version of the script that I read was on page 40. And what was the decision to make that to ground the first episode in the bicycle moment?
I think that this is always a challenge with first episodes of shows, as I'm sure you know, Sean, where you're like, you want people to just be in it and to not give away where it's going. But by the time people have been marketed to, like they know what they're watching, by the time they choose to watch this show, they know what the show's about. So you're not really surprising them with what the show's about. So I think it's always a challenge. You're like, do we let things evolve in that sort of, just do we give people little bits of information in a linear way, bit by bit, or do we lean into what the show ultimately becomes, which is a bit more, there's a lot of thriller, like subplots in the show or plots, and so we wanted to introduce that tone earlier because it is a big part of the show. So rather than let the show sort of get you comfortable with this granular drama and then surprise you with this turn, we wanted it to sort of have all of the layers at once and to go back from, there's this like suspenseful setup, and then you're back in Meep's world where she's out drinking and meeting her husband, and then she meets Otto, and then the stake. So we wanted it to sort of be all of its colors all at once. So that was just sort of a choice we made when we got into editing, and we're like, it feels like it starts really granular and then it gets really it takes this like sharp turn genre wise. And it felt to us like we wanted people to know kind of what the show was going to be, which is like all of these things at once. And that felt exciting to us. So we're like, why are we like denying people that until minute 40,
There is a novel of Anne Frank's diary that has been banned. I think you were mentioning that, Ashley. Can you comment about that?
Yeah, well, I think what you're talking about is Anne Frank's diary in some states, especially like Florida, has banned the diary, which is kind of absurd. And I think it's just a step in the wrong direction. And there's definitely, I remember even when I was in the audition process for A Small Light, I saw this video of people going around New York City asking people what the Holocaust was about. And a lot of them did not know, or they would say something really random, which is, I don't know. I can't imagine people not knowing about the Holocaust or Anne's story, but there is a good population. And what's so beautiful is Nat Geo and Disney Plus bringing it to a platform that hopefully all generations can learn from, especially the younger generation, with us being the last generation having Holocaust survivors.
What kind of reactions have you heard from people who've seen it?
It's. Oh, you go first.
No, go.
I was just going to say it's been really positive, and it's interesting because it's like, just the behind the scenes is that when you're taking a show around town and you're trying to you go on your traveling roadshow of trying to pitch a series, you're pitching it to a bunch of different like platforms and networks, and each one kind of has its different demographic. There's a version of this show that's on like a prestige cable network that people that already know about the Holocaust and are super liberal and are educated are the people who subscribe to this network. And so they already know what they're seeing, and they can be like, oh yes, what a powerful show. But then you have it on Disney Plus. There's like, everyone gets Disney Plus that has kids. Kids are watching some Marvel thing. And then they're like, Small Light, what's this? Oh, the Holocaust. I didn't know about that. Or, oh, that's that thing my parents deny, or whatever. It's like, it's just a sense of like, this should actually be mandatory required reading. But if it's not going to be required reading, it can be entertaining viewing that people can stumble onto in the way that people absorb content now, which is like through their screens and not through their books necessarily. But anyway, my speech on that aside, it's been really positive. I mean, I had a few friends whose kids are reading it or are watching the show in class. And that was really, and I've heard from a few people, they're like, oh, my son like only wants to watch basketball, but I made him watch the pilot and then he wanted to watch the rest of the show. To me, that's like the highest praise, because I'm like, great. If we got like some ADD, like afflicted, not tuned into historical drama teenagers to be like, what's this? I'm interested in this.
How about you, Ashley? What are people your age responding to?
The biggest surprise is a lot of people don't know the end. So a lot of people were surprised by like the last 2 episodes. They were like, what happens? Because they were watching as it was going, and you wait 2 weeks for the next one, and I would literally be getting texts about, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And I mean, it's amazing that people are being educated in this way. And I've gotten messages of people being like, oh yeah, my 50-year-old husband doesn't know the end of this story, and so thankful for this small light for teaching it to them. So that's incredible. And also what I love is I think people my age really feel like they can relate to these characters. And I mean, even for me, the whole time it always felt relatable reading these scripts. I mean, even though there's this like harrowing bike scene, one of my favorite moments is when Meep and Margot are actually going through the checkpoint, and she's talking about all these differences between her and Anne, and then she's like saying how Anne has a boyfriend and I don't, and like I can relate to that, unfortunately.
Do you have that, Carl? Do you have access to that?
Next.
What are you doing? I'm thinking. Just give me a second. Okay, here's what's gonna happen. I need you to talk to me. Just tell me something. Anything. Like what? It doesn't matter. Just talk like you don't have a care in the world, and smile at the same time and follow me.
I can't.
Yes, you can.
No.
You have to.
I'm not like Anne. Okay, I'm not brave.
So tell me about it. But just get on your bike and follow me, Margot. Tell me, what is Anne like?
She's opinionated and she's funny and she's a boyfriend. I don't have a boyfriend.
Yeah. What else?
And she knows who she is.
Aufmachen.
She's only 13 and she wants to be a famous writer, and I'm 16 and I don't have any idea of who I want to be.
Halt!
Sorry, my tire's flat and we're late for work. Our boss will kill us if we're late. So sorry.
Is he following us?
Don't look back.
Ausschließen.
I feel like with something like that, it allows people to relate to these characters even more and helps connect. And I think once you can connect with what you're seeing, then you can learn from what you're seeing even more. So
Absolutely. So that brings me to one of our questions from the audience, wondering, are there any materials for teachers to help classes talk about this?
You mean like reading materials based on?
Or supplemental information.
If there's some sort of I know that Tony and Joan have had all sorts of, they have probably a PDF filled with like helpful links and references, and I can distribute that through Carl or something, but let me ask them, because I know that when everybody showed up, there were movies, books, they were sort of like, here's your homework if you want to do the homework. And we all did the homework and then immediately forgot where the list was, but I do have a list. So I can send you that list.
Fantastic.
And then Meep's memoir is really interesting too. It's not necessarily, if you're interested in the Meep side of it, her memoir is an interesting thing for a teacher to read, if not to assign to a class. It's like as relatable as it gets. I mean, she talks about her husband. She talks about their domestic, just like, ugh, my husband's really annoying me today because blah, blah, blah. It's really, really relatable.
I'm sure you didn't think about Ukraine when you were putting this together, but I can't help but think that the German invasion of Amsterdam and the Netherlands took 5 days for the German army to take over. And I know that Putin thought that he would probably be able to just waltz into Ukraine and take it over in a similar fashion. I'm sure that that parallel has not escaped you. Have you guys talked about that, or have you heard other people commenting about the real world parallels that are happening today?
Actually, it's interesting you should bring that up because Prague, where we were filming, was one of the safe havens for people who were fleeing Ukraine. So we had Ukrainians working on our set who had to flee. My director Shadow was a Ukrainian film student who had been studying film there. She had to leave. She came to Prague. She worked on some big Netflix action movies, and then she worked on our show. And then she actually came with me to Canada, and we got her a refugee visa to come and work on my last film there. So she kind of got out, but she was always pointing out, not only did we have her on the set every day, kind of relating to what was going on in the content of what we were making, but we also had her as this relatable reminder of, we read about these events that are so far away from America, but then when you're actually working with somebody and you're just on her laptop watching Parks and Rec or The Office and talking about what's going to happen on the next season of Better Call Saul. And she's having issues with her boyfriend and she's going to trivia night and she's talking to her shrink, she could be any one of us. I know that seems like a really naive thing to say, but it's they're not it really kind of brought it home for all of us. We're these people that we're working with it's unfathomable to us that we would have something like that on our soil in our lifetimes if we didn't experience any sort of invasions of the US or school shootings or anything like that. But it just really brought it home that there were these Ukrainians who were yeah, I relate to this content. Also, I'm a person living my life and I'm not spending every second of my life thinking about my plight. Sometimes I just want to escape. Sometimes I just want to go out and have a drink. Sometimes I just want to watch TV. It kind of gave us a perspective as we were showing these characters in our show, also having this sort of, sometimes they want to compartmentalize, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're talking about something that's not the highest stakes of their day because they don't want to think about that. They want to just Anne wants to bicker with her mom about some really tiny teen issue, Anyway, it was that. And also there was just a constant influx of Ukrainians that were this diaspora was happening. The train station that we shot in was an intake center for refugees. So there were refugee tents set up. People were sleeping on the floor. They had their kids, their pets, their toys, their sleeping bags, their clothes. We're scouting for the scene where, Meep has to get on the train and leave Vienna. And we're walking around these triage stations where people have just come in and they're sleeping on the floor of the station, waiting to go to other parts of Europe. And I don't know, it was right in our backyard. So we thought about it a lot.
Incredible.
It was ever present. Yeah, it was ever present for us.
And I would imagine that that they knew other people still in Ukraine that didn't make it out, or maybe are, holed up in an annex somewhere themselves.
It really brought it home, especially because in today's parlance, it's this assistant of mine, when we were shooting in Amsterdam, she's oh my God, I love Amsterdam. She went to the Contemporary Art Museum and she took a picture and she went to go post it on Instagram. And then she's I can't post this. I can't have my friends in Ukraine look there was some survivor's guilt or escaper's guilt. She's I got out. I don't want to share this. Normally she wouldn't think about it, but there's a sense of the have and have not. There's all of the issues that I think anybody faces, but watching it play out with modern technology and the modern way people are sharing their stories and their information was interesting too. She's I can't. And actually she's back in Ukraine now just because they're actually the writer's strike, which she supports politically. It's there aren't jobs right now. So she went back and she's in a safe part of Ukraine, but she's waking up to air raid signals, and it's all of that is happening now to this person that was just in Canada with me working on my movie. So it's all relevant and comes up a lot for us all.
Ashley, did you experience that while you were in Prague?
Honestly, Susanna could not have said it better. But yeah, it's just, first of all, it's just such a reminder of you don't think that like history can repeat itself, but you're seeing it in today's society, unfortunately, like repeating itself. And I have friends here in New Jersey, where I am, who are Ukrainian and who this really affects them every day. And I just remember so vividly. I have one friend who, like, she also has that guilt that you were describing of, like, she has her family back there, and she feels like if she's posting like these things of like, going out, having fun, like they can't experience that, which is really, it's so difficult. And yeah, no, it's constantly on our mind. It's crazy. It's like unfathomable to think about, but it really is, when you have those people in your life reminding you that how it is happening. Yeah.
Fascinating. The most incredible part of Meep's story and the small light was her saying yes to Otto without hesitation. The tenacity of that heroism on an everyday basis that I can't even imagine.
I think one thing we tried to explore in the show too, or one thing we talked about a lot, is just what's everyone's personal line? Like, what's your line? You would say yes to certain things, but not to others, I'd like to think that I would say yes if asked. But would I leave my life in the US and go be a, full-time aid worker? Maybe not, so we all kind of choose where on the spectrum of participating in our like community and how we want to participate. And I think for everybody, it's like, how can I do just a little bit? How can I move that needle just a little bit towards more service? Even if you're not saying there are a lot of middle steps between I do nothing for society and I do everything for society all the time and I don't do anything else, and if we can all just do one or two more things, that's kind of Meep's point. She's like, just do some, say yes instead of no a couple more times than you would do. And then that's progress, I think.
A takeaway inspiration for me, and it changed me as an audience member, and it made me think. So I only hope that more people get to see this because it's on this platform and are able to think about that choice themselves.
Yeah, I hope we're not in a situation where we're the test in the way that Meep was, but I think that things that were like historical moments that we put in the show have now felt more and more eerily relevant to like events and current events. And like when Joan and I posted on our Facebook pages about the show, we got trolled by some anti-Semitic people posting memes, and we're like, oh, we're not even remotely, this is not in the past. This is like now also. So I don't know. I think the more we're aware that it's still going on, the more we can, relate to the show and hopefully relate to this is some aspirational quality that Meep has of service.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And really such a moving event hearing you guys talk about the situation in Prague and the Ukraine and really bringing it home for us is really amazing. And thank you so much for that. Thank you for allowing us to listen into your conversation. Just wanted to say that from the Social Justice Committee point of view, I think there's a kind of understanding that we all can't do the same thing, but we can all do something. We can't stand idly by. We have to take action of some kind. So I think that, what you were talking about just resonates with what we've been trying to promote here. So thank you so much. And I'd like to thank all the people who attended this. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, Sean. It was wonderful having this terrific insight, and I really appreciate you being here for us and for making this incredible film, come to reality and preserving this, what should be a memory that needs to be a memory, even if we don't personally have experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been great. I could talk about this all day. And I really appreciate everyone who listened to my sometimes wordy answers. Carl, thanks for inviting me. Sean, it's wonderful talking to you. And I wish you had worked on this, but we'll work on something else.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
This really resonated. So thank you very much for your time and for your amazing craftsmanship and storytelling.